Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Nadine. I'm the owner of NG Platinum Homes, and today we're going to talk about an interesting topic. I'm going to talk about 8 design mistakes that you don't want to make in your kitchen and how to remedy those. So let's start off with number 1. The first one is lack of countertop space. So in a kitchen renovation, countertop space typically is very important to people that do a lot of work inside their kitchen. And you really want to be conscious of the space that you are going to have. A lot of times I see clients that really want to overindulge in appliances and get extra large ranges, a very large fridge, a double oven, and sometimes the kitchen size just doesn't allow for that. So you really want to make sure that the planning is good when it comes to the countertop space, because you want to make sure that you have that space to work. So typically, a couple of examples that I can give you is, say, in your sink area, because as you know, we do a lot of prep and things near the sink. So you want to make sure that the rule of thumb is to have about 24 inches of workspace on one side of the sink and at least about 15 inches on the other side. So that way you don't feel crammed when you're doing dishes, prepping, any kind of thing of that nature. The next thing is, the next area that you really want to consider is your cooktop area and the areas on the side of your cooktop. Because of course, in that area, we know we do a lot of work there as well. So typically, the rule of thumb for that would be to keep at least 12 inches of countertop space on one side and about 18 inches on the other side, just to give it a little bit of extra space there. And of course, if you have the room for it, you can add an island, or you can make an island larger in your kitchen, and that will give a lot of extra countertop space for preparation, food serving, entertaining, anything of that nature. The second thing, number 2, I want to talk about is the gap between top of your cabinets and your ceiling. So typically in most older style homes, you do have that gap between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling. So if you're not really doing a full renovation, but you're just sprucing it up and you really want to close that gap, you can do a couple of things. You can add a space in there with a cabinet. Some people don't really realize that you can actually add a cabinet on top of your existing cabinets if you have a good carpenter, and that really works great to give you that really good aesthetic look that a lot of people are going for right now, with that all the way to the ceiling cabinet look. Secondly, if the gap really isn't that big, you can add a piece of wood in there and paint it nicely, and then maybe add some crown molding. That would solve that issue. So it's really important to consider how much space or how much of a gap that you have and look at your options. Number 3, the other thing that I see is lower cabinet issues. So most of the time in older style cabinets, we have only cabinets under there. And right now the design trend is putting in drawers. And using drawers instead of cabinets is aesthetically beautiful, but it also solves that problem of trying to crouch down and really have to dig down there for things that are in the back of that cabinet space. And that can be a real problem for people, especially if you have mobility issues. Elderly people, it's really hard for them to get down in there. So a remedy for that, like I said, might be to, if you're doing a kitchen renovation, consider putting in drawers instead of cabinets. Or if you really want that cabinet look, you can add pull-out shelves. And that will really amplify your space, give you lots of storage, and it will also solve the problem of getting down on the floor trying to dig for things in the back of the cabinet that are really unreachable. Number 4, I would have to say this is one of the biggest faux pas of any kitchen renovation that we have seen when we came in after the fact trying to redo somebody's kitchen. It's very important to consider the depth of the fridge. So like I said previously, a lot of people really want to go with those extra large, very big fridges for families, but most standard fridge cabinets are quite small, and you really want to make sure that if you want something larger, that if you get a countertop depth fridge, that you make sure that you make room for that in your kitchen design. So most of the counter depth fridges are about 24 to 27 inches deep. So it's important to consider that when designing your kitchen. If it is a problem and you went ahead and you bought a fridge and it's not the right size, you can number one, live with it, or you can, if you have a good carpenter, they can build a box around it, kind of custom to make it built in, to make it seamlessly fit with the rest of your kitchen. That's a good idea, although sometimes that can get awfully expensive. So you got to be careful with that when it comes to purchasing a refrigerator for your kitchen. Number 5, the appliance triangle. And you might think, what in the world is an appliance triangle? So basically what this was discovered and formulated and basically put in to work in the 1940s. And basically what the appliance triangle is the space between your most used appliances. So your sink, your fridge, and your range. And pretty much most of the designs state that you really want to keep that in mind as far as the distance between those 3 items, because it makes the workflow much better if you keep that distance between about 4 to 9 feet. And the only problem with this is this was implemented back, like I said, in the 1940s. So most of the kitchens back then were a lot smaller. They were made typically for the 1950s housewife and just basically made for one person in the kitchen, which these days that's typically not the case anymore. So if your kitchen is larger, you don't have to really consider that option as much. You still want to have a good functional workflow, but the rule of thumb with that triangle when it comes to the appliance triangle doesn't necessarily have to be a definite rule of thumb in your kitchen planning. Number 6, don't rush to buy appliances. So this is a definite situation that we have seen a lot when it comes to renovations of kitchens, especially after COVID. The availability from manufacturing was not that great. Wait times and lead times were really astronomical, 1 year, 1.5 years for the weight of appliances. But I feel like you don't want to rush to buy something just because you want to have that kitchen renovation done in a 2 to 3 month timeline. So you're just going to go buy and pick whatever that they have in stock. I've had many clients that did their full kitchen renovation, put their tiny little fridge back in the kitchen just to wait because they really wanted that large, say, Sub-Zero fridge. When you're making such a large investment, you definitely want to wait. And if you feel like it's not that urgent of a matter, I really wouldn't rush to buy just what's in stock, just to make sure that you can finish your kitchen renovation when it's supposed to be completed. So there's that. Number 7, the biggest trend right now is bold colors in the kitchen. And I think this is great, but at the same time, there's an issue with that in, say, 2, 3, 5 years. If you don't like that red lacquered kitchen anymore or bright yellow cabinets, it might be something that you grow out of. So my suggestion for that would be using accents, or you can maybe paint your accent wall behind your sink a different color, because as we know, paint is pretty easy to change, so we can do that. You can maybe just make your island a bright blue and give you that nice bright color, but it's one piece of the kitchen that can easily be repainted. You can also add color with bar stools or plates. If you like, say, bright yellow, you can get some bright yellow plates, and those are easily changeable. So it's something to consider when you're really looking at the color scheme in your kitchen. Number 8. The next biggest thing I think you should want to consider is not choosing the wrong countertop material for your kitchen. So with Pinterest and all of these sites out there, people see some really beautiful stones and countertops, granites, quartzites, and sometimes it just might not be functional for your way of living. So do you cook a lot and you like to put hot pots on top of countertops? Well, quartz might not be a good option for you because they're not resilient to heat. You might want to look into a more natural stone like granite. And if you want to go back into my other YouTube videos, you can look at, I have some videos there that talk about the different materials versus the other materials, and really think about it and consider what material you're choosing for your living situation. And also, you might want to have a countertop that is resistant to staining. You don't want a porous countertop. You don't want a countertop like granite where you have to seal it frequently. So these are some things to consider that we see often, that people really love the look of a certain stone, but they don't really think about the everyday use. And that's something that you really want to consider. So the other thing that you want to consider, I'm going to add this on top of my 8 things that you don't want tragically to happen is if you have a general contractor that's of course, doing your kitchen renovation, you want to make sure that you also, if it's in your budget, have a designer, because the designers can look into these things and look outside the box about color schemes and depths of different things and materials that maybe your general contractor might not talk to you about. So in order to avoid a catastrophe to happen in the end, or something that you're really unhappy with, it's easier to hire a designer to help you with these little details, or find a company like mine that we're a one-stop shop. We do the renovations, but we also have the in-house designers that can follow with you the whole way to make sure that there's no issues with any of these problems. And for most people, most kitchen renovations are the most expensive renovation that they will do. So a lot of these tips are really important to follow when it comes to your design and layout of your kitchen, and make sure that it's followed through in the right way so these mistakes don't happen. So I hope that these tips helped you. You can follow along with the rest of my videos. I have lots of other tips for you when it comes to all things renovation. Until next time, keep designing your life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.